Yeah.
Turn that down just a little bit. We'll get you going here in a second. I'll give it a few more minutes and then we'll get you guys rolling. Apologize fighting a little bit of a cold, so a little bit puffy and some sinus stuff going on from the kiddos. Part of the season, right? So bear with me. I have a little bit of congestion, some swelling, and all that fun stuff that comes with a cold, aches and pains, and but all good. We'll get through it here. Before or after. So what I will get going, and I'll record this and kick it out, is obviously we're coming down to the end of the 28-day transformation challenge. And I want to talk more about along the lines of how to make a lot of these components part of your consistent being or life. And this will help you because this is some of the work that Aaron and I have done over this past 2 years of a little past year and a half or whatever, somewhere in that range, year and a couple months since we joined into the are invested in some of the NLP training. So we want to look at some of the actions that you guys are doing. So obviously the eating plan, exercise, sleep, rest, recovery, those are all components that work together to allow you to be the best version of yourself, right? So I got to stop pushing on the desk and shake this. So those actions allow you to show up the best possible version, your best possible version, right? So when you take care of yourself from a nutrition standpoint, you fuel your body with the proper nutrients, you're going to have a lot more clarity. Your energy baseline is going to be really good. Your recovery, your sleep, all are going to be impacted by nutrition components. Obviously the workouts, it seems like everybody has the workouts done. I think the workouts are kind of the easy part. What I'm saying there is obviously when you're going through the lifts themselves, the workout themselves, it can be challenging, which is good. And you want to challenge yourself from a mental capacity and a resistance capacity. What can you tolerate to get from point A to point B? Because that's going to show up in other areas of your life. If you're really successful with the lifting component, can push yourself and be uncomfortable and still get through the workout and see progression with resistance training, where else does that show up in your life, right? When you get challenged from, things don't go your way or a stressful situation, obviously the resilience you built within your own being, right, from the resistance training can show up in other areas when things get really stressful. And you can tie those components together, right? So you can get through about anything if you build that, that resilience. So I always think the resistance training is probably the easy component, but there's so much more benefit, right? So the chemical responses, the things we can't mimic, the drug companies still have not figured out how to reproduce what exercise can do for the human body. Will they eventually figure it out? Who knows? The human body is so beautiful in that component that we can't figure it out from the science aspect. We know some of the responses that happen, but we just can't reproduce it in the lab, which is kind of cool. So they're still trying on that one. So obviously with the resistance training, there's a ton of benefits. We know that. The nutritional component becomes like a habit, right? And again, since NLP training, I kind of got a new lens. I look through habits a little bit differently. I look at habits, I should say, a little bit differently, because I think habits can instantly change. There's some work you can do from a mental capacity, a mental component, that you can instantly change your habits. So obviously with those 28 days, there's certain actions we wanted you to do. And here's some examples of ways that I've been able to change some of my habit components and my really identity to help reinforce the way I want to show up, the actions, right? So let's look at it from that standpoint. So if you're struggling with nutrition, you overeat sometimes, and or you eat, sugary substance, and or you eat, too many carbs. So what you can do and how you want to look at it from a different lens is look at what actions do I have to do to show up a specific way? What, do I need to change my identity? I'm not Tony who eats sugar all the time, right? I'm Tony who eats well-rounded meals built around protein and drink my allowed amount of water daily to allow me to show up, be fit, lean, a leader, and have clarity in my life. So you want to look at it from that perspective or that lens. You can change the way you look at things, and they become easier to implement in your daily life, because you want to look at the actions it takes to get to the point of where you want to be, or the person who you want to be, or how you want to show up. If that makes sense. I know I'm going off a little bit more in the weeds, but if you look at it from a different lens in your identity, and you change how those small little actions are going to give you a different identity, or you change your identity. Hey, I'm the person who shows up fit, lean, healthy. Eating healthy is really simple for me to do and implement into my life. If you look at it from that way, it makes it 10 times easier to make it a habit or change that habit. And that's why, when they say habits take, 21, 61 days to change. Once I went into the NLP training and the submodalities and looking into the future and the past and looking at our programming, I can instantly change some of my habits within some type of communication. So using communication in the way I look through and visualize the world, instantly change some of my habits to be better habits, the way I wanted to show up. So those are some of the components that I wanted to touch on. Like, who do you have to become? What's your identity? What does it need to be to consistently have some of these components within the 28-day challenge? Like, obviously, nutrition, workouts, sleep, rest, recovery. So those are the components, to think about. Obviously, we're going to get some assessments down these next 5 to 7 days. We'll get everybody's assessment taken care of. So if you guys have other questions, obviously you want to consume this video and give us a little bit more specific questions. I know a few of you, I still need to have some scheduled time with you guys, because I wanted to talk through a little bit more specific NLP training. So I will be reaching out to a few of you that we didn't get scheduled. It's not like, hey, the 28 days done, we're not going to continue to do some of these things. We really invested in the NLP training, to fix us, right? Because we had our own loops and our own processes that we couldn't figure out. And we wanted to invest in ourselves to get ourselves better. And then what we do with the tools that NLP has taught us is how can we utilize these tools to impact our community and the people around us. So I will still be scheduling some calls to work through, some submodalities and if-then statements, because it's interesting, the loops that we see. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that, because the 28-day, a person does really well, hits the results that they desire, is showing up the way that they need to show up to hit the end results that they set. And then all of a sudden something changes and they go right back into what they did before the challenge. And they're showing up the same way they did before the challenge. It's called a loop. We see loops all the time. People loop all the time. Until you identify your looping, you're coming back to those habits that are not conducive for you to show up the way you want. You have to identify that, and what is the lesson? What is the emotional response from that lesson? A lesson learned will not be repeated. So that's why it's so important, because we got to strip that back, look at, okay, why is my habits changing back to the way they were before? Because I'm going to get the results that I had prior to the 28-day challenge. Identify if you're looping back into some of those habits, you need to ask yourself, why? Okay, why am I doing this? Is there an emotional charge? Like, what's the lesson? What's the learning? Oh, I'm doing this because this, or oh, I'm doing this because I have some fear of I can't maintain these results, or oh, I'm doing this because it gives me a dopamine hit because the food's filling a gap in my self-worth, right? We can go pretty deep in that component. You have to identify the loop. You have to identify if there's an emotional response to that. And then obviously, what was the learning? oh, I'm doing this to self-sabotage because I don't feel deserving that I should show up a certain way. Um, what we have to do from that standpoint is, okay, what was the lesson, what was the learning, and then the emotional charge, and then let it go. What I'm saying there is, I'm going to let that feeling go and move on from it. That's not who I am. That's not my identity. That's not how I want to show up. And you can instantly replace that with how do you want to show up? Toward and away from, right? You want to go toward the way you want to show up. You don't want to go away. So you always want to say, what do I want instead? So again, I'll be reaching out to some of you guys to get a little bit more deeper in the NLP component, see if we can't break some hurdles for you guys, and then break some barriers. That way you feel good about the process, because you don't have to struggle. There's no need, there's no reason. We just have to dig a little bit deeper and figure out what's going on, and break some of the programming we have around how we're showing up. So let me know if you have any other questions. I will kick this out, and then I will see a lot of you guys in the facility and in your assessments. And then a few of you, I will do some more one-on-one training with the NLP training component, and we'll break some more barriers for you guys. So happy Thursday. Take care. I'll talk with you soon.